host, Rycker, and I'm joined with Persistence. You might already know him, but he's he's a Horde guy, Horde FC, does fleets. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Persistence?
That's about it, honestly.
So, a lot of stuff in Eve has happened today. First of which being probably the biggest news is that PandaFam and Pappy, or just Pappy, deployed to the new staging of Kaira, or Kaira, how do you pronounce it?
Kaira, I think, yeah.
One of those things. Which is a system right outside Aquarius, which actually, to me, makes the most sense because Aquarius is actually within jump range of Delve. So in doing that, Fountain has pretty much been evacuated except for, I guess, a few people there. That's probably the biggest thing that happened this week. We also had some new updates to the Abyss, which added a bunch of new NPCs. So people will be seeing now, instead of just drifters, drones, and trigs, you're going to be seeing all those three plus some Edencom ships and a few other rats such as Angel Cartels. And I think that's the only one I saw, but yeah. And then they've also come out with the new T6 abyssal sites and T0 filaments. So that's pretty much it. Other than that, some little bit of corp news for Concordiate. It's nothing good in that we lost. Well, we as good as lost two Astrohuses that were placed in Fountain. Thank you, Init, which will be a story for later. So the first thing that we're going to cover is, well, first I have here in the show notes, show updates. So a few quick things for the viewers. I am right now working on a way to get a better quality on YouTube. One of the big things I noticed about the YouTube uploads is that they are extremely low quality and you can barely see who's on the show. So we're working on that, experimenting with how it's essentially exported from OBS. I'm also working with an artist to get some more assets for the show. That's being worked on, and that's pretty much it.
Nice.
So yeah, to start off. Oh yeah, I'm pretty excited. This is a guy I've known since college who's doing game art and needs it for his portfolio, so should be good.
Cool.
If not, he's very good at faking it.
All right.
So anyway, just start off, Persistence. How's your Eve week been?
I've definitely seen better weeks. I know, like I'd say it's like the content has been pretty shallow, or like hasn't really ramped up for this week. Especially with people still trying to move and sorting out all the logistics. It's been shallow until recently, which is where we've gone on a lot of strat ops, going on fleets, doing like toasting or like shooting at structures. We've had occasional fights here and there, but it's not. If people were to compare it to when we originally arrived at Iridia to invade Fountain, it's not. It's maybe not as active, but it's probably a pretty bad comparison to compare it to the first Iridia deployment. So.
Well, and like you said, people are still moving. One thing we did have, which our new neighbors consequently are Darwinism, who I don't think they're in the war, but we did get involved with a little bit of a skirmish with them. I think it was yesterday, in which they brought Harbingers and we just brought Standing, which was just a cascade of people. As you can say, the Horde really came through. And it was funny. I was looking at the battle report, which I will post in here in chat right now. So when first looking at this, or when I first went and got the really kills, I was thinking, okay, this was a slaughter. Then I saw that actually, no, it was actually a pretty almost even fight. We lost 8 ships, and according to Darwin's 12. But the biggest thing was a very specific kill was that Horde lost a here. Oh, it was a Megathron and a Balgorn, both of which were pretty expensive, which pushed the. Actually, come to think of it, actually looking at this, we lost more ISK than they did. Yeah. I mean, not by much. Like, we lost 2.1 billion ISK, and they lost 1.9. But looking at their ships, they had a lot of T1s and battle cruisers, whereas we went a little bit more blingy with our with the Balgorn, namely.
So yeah, I mean, like with that, it's standing fleet, so like you're inevitably gonna get like random stuff that doesn't survive for long in the field, but you also have the fact that Darwinism knows what they're doing. Like they're basically, I want to say like skill wise, they're equivalent of GBT over in Fountain. Like they're very good at small gang and doing what they do. So of course you're gonna have those kind of fights where they might be outnumbered, but they'll still pull off with more ISK.
So, real quick, are we allied with the Warlords of the Deep, or are they other?
I think they're all just third parties to the war,
Or
unless
um,
they
they
are like
like
under contract.
Yeah, because when I was going around Quirius, like they own stuff in Quirius, so it makes me think that okay, they're on our side because they've got some sovereignty structures in systems with like tests and brave and all that stuff.
It's I think the only sovereignty systems that they have is like are TCU structures. So it's nothing that's really significant. There might be some iHubs in there. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely an interesting, fun fight. I was able to go in. Well, so what had happened from my perspective was that it was on Saturday, which is Concordia sort of like chill out on Discord while in standing fleet and just bullshitting around. And whenever there's a ping, go out and fight stuff. And so what had happened was I'm on Discord chilling, and one of our directors, Fish, or Hua Hua Kua Kapow. I can't believe I can actually fucking pronounce that name because holy shit. Like, I asked him about it, and he said, oh, it's the Hawaii State National Fish. Which, okay, that's kind of a very Hawaiian name, which sounds kind of offensive, but I mean, it sounds Hawaiian. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But yeah, it was a fun fight. Got on some kills. Thought we won. Technically, we won in the number of ships we killed, but in the ISK, we didn't exactly lose.
Yeah.
It was pretty even, actually.
I'd say for like the number of people versus the actual like individual skill of the Darwinism guys, like it was like all in all, it was a pretty even fight, and they came out pretty even as well. Like they brought like better skilled players and the individual aspect, and we just brought more ships and yeah.
Yeah, looking at it, it was 90 versus 50 or 90 versus 60. So yeah, they were definitely outnumbered and outgunned.
Right.
A lot of them actually made it out. A lot of them, when getting on the field, like actually made it out. It was just a few unfortunate, or the 26 of them were just unfortunate out of 60.
Yeah, I kind of wish we got that Macario, but we still got a lot of stuff there in the end.
Yeah, so that was the big thing that happened. Well, one of these smaller skirmishes that happened, which it wasn't even against Imperium. You would think that we'd have more skirmishes against the Imperium, but I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would think that if Imperium is still operating their standing fleets, it's not as like high capacity. And even if they were, I think they're just operating within Delve, because if they were to extend their standing fleet out to Quirius, they would just they'd probably be surrounded at that point.
Well, it was interesting because like there was a lot of herf blurf about, oh well, you can't, there's been very little progress in Quirius, but when I went through Quirius, I think it was Saturday when I was just going around and trying to kill stuff. There was a lot of the space had already been taken. So
Yeah, but like we still have a bunch of structures to go. So like it hasn't really been completely taken. Like I imagine at some point we're going to redo our staging deeper into Quirius, like we've done with Fountain, but I think it's gonna be a bit slow in the beginning. So we still have a long ways to go, despite taking like a ton of eye hubs and taking down a bunch of structures.
well, the real question is like, so this I kind of hope doesn't happen, but part of me, after being in Fountain and then us just kind of pulling out of Fountain completely, I kind of hope this doesn't happen, but I don't think it will because Quirius is a gateway into Delve, whereas Fountain wasn't, and we kind of just I don't want to say we abandoned Fountain, but we surely pulled out the bulk of our forces, which pretty much allowed Init to just steamroll through it and take back most of the space in like 4 days.
Yeah, but like that's because there's really nothing left there, honestly. It's just like for the exception of like a few scattered structures, like we took down those Keepstars, those Toyos, all the forts, the Athenors, the Tars, etc. Like we've done our job in Fountain. There's no point in just sitting around constantly trying to get into ZXP. Like it would have been definitely so it's been an uphill battle from the beginning, right? But like it's gonna be a lot more uphill if we were to have to go down that route.
Right. Yeah. No. One thing too. Uh, I mean, Quirius is just a better invasion vector. Like you just by looking at it, like it's better to invade.
Right, yeah, because like if you see like what was it, the length of the regional gates, like the ZXB to YTAC 2 gate, it's pretty long to the point where you can't like project any super capitals, right? But if you go through Quirius, on the other hand, you have more ability to project to just bridge in your capital ships and to sort of make it more riskier for the enemy to send fleets around the Quirius area. So it seems to still be like a two front war at this point, but like at if we stay in Quirius much longer, I guarantee it's gonna just turn to one front and yeah.
On that note, so the whole idea that we've quote unquote fully abandoned Fountain, like that's the reason why I didn't say we've abandoned it, is because while yes, we're not there, like ain't it RF'd like a ton of our structures. They've actually killed quite a few of our fortizars. But
Yeah, I mean, I think at the point where we made the decision to redeploy, we just resigned ourselves to the fact that those structures are forfeit. We're not going to try to take them down because it's like too much of a task to make sure everyone gets out of that structure, then unanchor it, and then get a Oracle to scoop it. Because Lord knows, unanchoring structure near hostile spaces does not really go well, and we saw that with Goonswarm attempting to unanchor their own fortizars before the war started, right? So they would require too much effort and too many logistics. So it's just like, well, what's the point? Like we have like a bunch more of these. We can just leave them. Let them have to chew through 2 or 3 timers. It doesn't really matter.
well, and what's interesting too is that while yes, we've kind of just been like, okay, we're going to let them just chew these through. When the final timer for the ITAC C Fortizar, Never Forgetty Spaghetti, came out, like Horde formed in force, and you also had NC there. I don't know if PL was there, but there was definitely a lot of NC there.
Yeah, I was actually not aware that we defended final timer, so that's actually interesting to hear. But yeah, I mean, I think we just whenever we do these ops to defend the fort. Like we really don't come in with the mindset of, okay, this has to stay up. We have to make sure this stays alive. It's just like, let's just you know pick a fight. Might as well.
Yeah, no, that I wholeheartedly agree with that right there. And that actually is a perfect segue into the story of the two Concordia Astra houses that I tried to unanchor, but it didn't really work out. So the first one, a very musky husky, that one I didn't think was going to get up anyway because it was in KVN. It was a lot farther away. I just didn't think it was going to get up. So first thing I did was when I was like, hey, we're leaving Fountain, was I pretty much ripped out all the fittings and said, I did this for both the Astra houses, ripped out the fittings. It was like a little over 1.6 billion is worth of fittings, and said, hey, we need to evac this stuff. So we did that, or we attempted to do that. We got all the fittings out of the ITAC-C Astra, which was like a clone bay and some fuel, and I think like a Tech 1 stand-up bomb launcher. We got that out, shipped that to Marmia, but we didn't actually get a jump freighter into, or any type of logistics ship, such as like a haulers or anything. I probably should have just said haulers, but yeah, we couldn't get a hauler into KVN. And so you had like 1.6 bill worth of fittings just sitting in KVN. And so what had happened was it started getting to like the time at which, hey, we need to evac the fittings or the Citadel's going to die. And so I logged on, and turns out, hey, what was supposed to happen didn't actually happen. And so out of sheer desperation, I just pretty much just said, okay, fuck it. I'm not going to try to get a jump freighter in here. I'm just going to asset safety all the fittings and get them to hop hib.
Yeah, I mean, it's better for you to just keep ownership of that instead of letting them be able to loot it. So
Pretty much. And that was the whole thinking, because once it dies, I mean, the loot is going to be pretty much non-existent. Like, they'll get a clone bay and some fuel. Whereas with ITAC-C, like, they're not going to get anything, because that structure, pretty much once I knew we were going to start pulling it up, that it went offline because I had pulled out everything to where it's just a shell.
okay.
And all that stuff got evac'd. Then a few days later, they reinforced KVN, which I knew was going to happen. However, the unanchoring timer for ITAC-C was still going, and it made it through its week. However, its timer came out pretty much 10 minutes before the fortizar timer in ITAC-C. And so my thinking was, okay, Init's going to come in and they're going to kill this fort. However, they're going to be early. How much do you want to bet they're going to be early enough? Because they haven't reinforced it yet. How much you bet they're going to want to go and maybe scoop up this Astra and make a free 800 mil? So my thought was, all right, I need to figure out a way to delay them. And so I pinged a max forum for my corp and said, hey, listen, I need dictors. We're not going to fight in it, but if we can delay them just a little bit, we can scoop this Astra, and boom. Another part of that plan was purchasing 600 mil worth of bubbles. And the idea was, if I can bubble fuck the gate enough and make them have to trek through all those bubbles, maybe, just maybe, I can delay them just a little bit more. Because it doesn't take much time for me to warp in, scoop up an Astra, and cloak. However, none of that happened because 7 hours before it was supposed to fully unanchor, Init reinforced it.
So is the Astra still there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's now on its final timer.
Oh, okay.
In like 3 days from now, because it being unpowered allowed them to pretty much go right through the shield and through the and to the armor. So yeah, no, that's going to die. But what was funny, what was like, Init has been reinforcing all of the structures that aren't theirs around Fountain. However, they left the one Citadel. For me, I'm just thinking, okay, it's unanchoring, they're going to try to scoop it. So this entire time I'm thinking they're not going to reinforce it. This entire week. Apparently they proved me wrong. Which, again, it kind of sucks, but also kind of doesn't, because that means that I don't actually need to go through the hassle of picking up the structure and getting it back. So, yay on that. But yeah, what's next? PandaFam after moving away from Fountain and attacked. Oh, so I'm kind of interested here. What are your thoughts about Init actually going and pretty much taking back the vast majority of Fountain?
I mean, that's a lot of effort that they're going through. I mean, sure, it's in 4 days, but like, how long are those fleets? How long are those Init fleets out for to take back Fountain, doing toasting? Like, it's like, why are you even bothering? Like, you're not going to expend more energy into and to anchor all of the lost stuff, or to anchor back like a bunch more Athnors to farm moons when you still have hostels nearby. Like, I I'm not sure I really understand why they're doing that, and there may be a good reason to it, but like you got to focus on defending the Quirius front instead of pushing back out to Fountain.
Well, honestly, it feels like, so for me, it feels like they're trying to divert our attention, when in actuality that's not going to happen. One of the things we've seen within it, especially after they became sort of this mobile force, this mobile counterattacking force, was that they started attacking Test, and they had some success, but they didn't really do much. And then they attacked Brave, and then Brave kicked their ass. And then they were in Quirius for a little bit defending Quirius, but then PandaFam moved down and was like, okay, we're going to go balls deep into Quirius. And then Init decided, okay, we're now going to go up to Fountain. So it kind of feels like Fountain Init is trying to avoid the major conflict areas, and is trying to sort of hit us where we're weak, essentially hit us where our back is turned. But one thing I don't think they realize is that, like, we don't really care about those areas. We just care about the place that we're attacking now. Like, if they take back Fountain, that's going to be, like, if they're going to re-iHub, do all that stuff, like, that's all money. And they've already started putting down structures in that space again. So that's even more risk, even more structures that are going down, which might just get killed again.
Right, and you have to add to that the cores that they have to buy and ship and then place into these structures. It's I'm not sure if that's like the best monetary decision, but
Well, and especially after, like, the Imperium lost 4.2 trill. Like, yeah,
you're talking about like the campaign overall in Fountain?
the overall campaign in Fountain,
Okay.
which actually was kind of interesting, because I was talking to someone in my corp a little bit ago, and they basically brought up about how, okay, well, that amount of money gets replaced from the TTT, like, easily. But my whole thought was, okay, yeah, it gets replaced by the TTT, but all the alliances in this conflict get TTT money. So it's kind of a moot point in the fact of that was still 4.2 trillion that could have been used elsewhere.
Yeah.
In a sense. So, and also to bring up the fact that you look at the last MER, like, Delve isn't making as much money as it used to be. So there was this whole thing where that the Imperium, and especially Matani, was talking about how the longer this war goes on, it's just going to favor us more. When in actuality, like, the longer this war goes on, like, yeah, goons have a lot of money, but they don't have an infinite amount, especially if they keep losing stuff. Like I bring up the whole feed that happened where they drop, dreads on test. That's a lot of SRP that they have to cover. Yeah, they have a ton of ISK, but if they keep burning through it, eventually it's going to run out. Like, it's not that it's almost like it's not the fact that these things are happening, or it's not the individual feeds and the individual losing of vast amounts of ISK. It's the fact that they keep doing it.
Well, I think so. With the Dread fight in, what was it, 49 Takio or 4 Taco 7? I can't
It was
remember.
G Magic.
G Magic, okay. Like, I think it was just them, like, giving it a shot. Like, if we're operating on the assumption that it was just them attempting to insurance fraud and at the same time trying to make a play into test space, then, like, I think at that point, like, it was an expense that they were able to write off. Because if it was not an expense that they would write off, then they would not have launched that kind of attack in the first place. So I think whoever runs the finance in Imperium, they're gonna be doing okay for the most part. But at some point when we start moving deeper into queries, I think that story's gonna change. They're gonna be a, slightly more conservative.
Well, and it's like, too, like, yeah, you got all this money, but the fact is that, yes, all those Dread pilots made money. They made their insurance cost, and they got Coalition SRP. Like, the individual members made money. But the fact is that the Coalition still had to pay Coalition SRP. Yeah.
But like, you have to remember, like, the coalition SOP wall is pretty deep, and you saw the screenshot of like what 1 trillion ISK and like a bunch of random like industry stuff that was sent to Imperium. Like, I think they're more than well covered.
Yeah, especially for a while, but yeah, and especially a lot like that. But back to the original point of the longer this war goes on, the more it's going to favor the Imperium. I don't know. I don't really know if that's quote unquote very true, because the longer this war goes on and the more of their stuff dies and the more money they have to spend, if this war goes on long enough, theoretically, they could go bankrupt.
Yeah, I mean, like, maybe. So I don't know how the TCT works. Maybe so. I'm under the assumption that the Imperium still makes money from the TTT, and I'm also under the assumption that the routing and mining operations of the Imperium are limited because of blops, camps, and like spooky stuff venturing through the space. So like as the war goes on, yeah, they're probably gonna run out of money. But I think at that point it's more of a question of either does the Imperium run out of money first, or does Pappy lose its morale first? Like it's one or the other. Like at some point, like people might get bored. I can't guarantee that's going to be the case with like there's a whole new front of content in Querius, but with people having to go back to their regular life with their jobs and especially with like for example like Alpha Star having to take a leave of absence because of in real life stuff, like it's at some point maybe like real life will collide with members, and like it's maybe that will also be an issue where the Imperium might be standing to benefit or to lose.
Yeah, and and I think one thing too, and especially one thing to take into account was the Horn of Gundor. Like, with that being sounded, like, say what you want, like, Reddit smug aside, like, that brought a lot of support back to the Imperium. Like,
Right,
we've
yeah.
seen billions, like trillions of this get donated to the Imperium along with various Titans. Yes, we've seen the occasional people on Reddit getting pissed off about the fact that they got an email. Like, I don't really understand that. Like, I get spam emails all the time. I mean, I've replied to a few just for shits and giggles, and I've gotten days worth of entertainment from them. So
Yeah.
I guess
with the Hornet Gundor, it's like I think it was the case where it's like a lot of people came back from it, and then for the next 2 or 3 days, like nothing happened. So it was them just
we'll definitely see how that.
yeah, being like strategic blue balls, I guess you could say.
And we'll definitely see how that works out. One thing that the Matani actually said on his show was he sounded the horn of Gundor, and saying like, "Oh hey, barbarians of the gates, Fountain is on fire," and then 4 days later, Fountain gets pretty much steamrolled by Init, and he made the comment of the biggest worry, his quote unquote, well, not really his biggest worry, but he had to go back and say, "Guys, I swear we're under attack." Literally just a week ago, Fountain was like all red, but they abandoned it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I honestly don't know what to say besides that. Like, I think if they were to have waited maybe like a week longer, like they definitely knew that we were going to be restaging at some point, like last week, right? So they could have just, waited an extra week, waited for PanFam to get resettled into their new staging, and then started calling up their super old line members. Because after, the week after, it would have been us, being like fully combat capable and like pushing through Quirius. So like that would have been a very like the most opportune time, but I think he pulled the trigger too early.
Yeah, and I think that was definitely something that like he might have missed the ball on. But part of it too is it's like, okay, his ideally, like if he would have waited till like the time where it's like, okay, we are actually now in the point of where we're invading Delve, like that would have been the most opportune time to say, hey guys, they are in Delve, we need to call up the Horn of Gundor. But at the same time, if he would have waited too late, like it's essentially he needed to pull it at the right time, because if he did it too early, it would have been blue balls and people would have been pissed. If he would have done it too late, it wouldn't have mattered. And so I think your assessment of waiting until we were pushing through Quirius on our way towards Delph, I think that I agree that probably would have been the best time. However, do you think though that maybe Pappy's strategy might lean a little bit more towards blue balls to sort of like, I don't want to say like
So
make the Matani look like an idiot?
I don't think
Exactly.
Pappy Command is very concerned with that kind of deal. Honestly, like granted, I don't know like what the hell goes on behind the higher level back rooms, but like I think we're going to do this invasion on our schedules and not what the Mittani's mood is like week to week. Like it's gonna be by our rules, right? Because it is our invasion, so we have to do the invasion by our timetable. So it's regardless of what the Mittani does. Like there is a set schedule, there is a set plan. I hope. I don't really know. Like I am just like a random FC, but like I'd say there's a plan in place, and it doesn't really need us to look at the fucking rain clouds and like interpret the star signals as like, oh, what's the Matonic gonna do this week? What's he's gonna say on the next where the fuck the Imperium News Network, whatever. Like yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely like just looking at it, like a lot of it feels like a lot of members, aside from the few Reddit shit posters, don't really care about what the Imperium has to say, which is
So
something that I don't think is getting across.
yes, so like I think ironically enough, I think Umutani said it best. Was like I was just like a very select few people from this game that are being the most vocal on Reddit and posting all these random things and being very hostile. But unfortunately, those few voices really do drown out the actual like goings on in this game and the actual narrative that's actually going down. So it's like even more like prudent than ever to like pay attention to what's actually going on in the game instead of what some random people with some flare tags are posting on Reddit. Because quite honestly, like I think it's the worst time to be on this subreddit right now.
Because I mean, the amount of like bullshit that's getting flown out is just it's reached new peaks. Like like I never thought that people would actually be getting pissed over a fucking email. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just actually ridiculous. Like, I just I can't I don't
I think
understand that.
the only thing that's really that really that's really good that came out of r/eve is whenever Brisk posts this new video or two, there's that video of some high suckers that are delivering milk to Goon's form. That was those two were pretty good.
Didn't see that. Now I need to go look it up.
Yeah, hold on. Let me link it to you. It was pretty fun. That's something I would do. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like the narrative like gets really distorted on Eve subreddit, and also, yeah, I mean that's all I can really say. Like, it's kind of stupid.
Well, and it was kind of interesting because this actually goes along with the whole narrative thing. I was actually talking to Billy after Talking to Stations aired. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Talking to Stations, you should go in and you should definitely watch it. It's a 10 out of 10 show. But anyway, I was talking to him, and we were talking about uh, basically like why this war is being fought and like what actually makes goons the bad guys. And one of the things he said was that it's not so much the goon line membership; it's more of he talked about the culture and the whole thing with the Matani and how the Matani sort of breeds this hatred towards his enemies and how that's kind of bad for the game. One of the things I brought up was that from an outsider's perspective, you look at all, and this is just like looking at Twitch personalities, but you look at all the Twitch personalities, like Talking to Stations, Trash Talk Tuesday, like everybody that is on those shows and hangs out, and even Open Comms, like all those shows, everyone there is friends. They're all like talking. They're like, yeah, no, we fight each other, but at the end of the day, we're having fun. Yada yada yada. We're all friends. We all message each other back and forth. We hang out. We play other games. But then you've got the meta show in INN, which is kind of like the no, these are our people. Fuck everybody else. I guess very hostile towards anyone that's not them. Whereas you've got the majority of the other shows, it's like, hey, we're all friends here. This is just a game. And that sort of like split in culture is, to me, like, it just seems like that you've got two different communities within this same game. You've got that sort of community, which is like all the pappy guys, which they like to fight each other. They like to shoot people. But at the end of the day, they're all friends. And then you've got the Imperium, which is like, we're the Imperium. Fuck everyone else. They're attacking us. This is more than just a game. It's almost like they take it too seriously, in a sense.
Right. I think it's just like boils down to like games bringing out like the very like basics of human behavior and like tribalism. Like if you look back on history, right, like a bunch of these wars that happened long ago were based on a lot of these tribalism sentiments and people not being able to resolve some of the cultural differences with one another, whether that comes to like religion or how their governments run or just the people themselves, etc., etc. So I mean, it. I guess like in hindsight, this was bound to happen at some point. So yeah, I mean, I haven't been in Goon Swarm. I haven't played with them. Like I've only been here for like an year, when out like being active for a year. So like I don't know a lot about it. So like I can't really comment on like Goon Swarm culture or anything like that. So, but I think that's what really this war comes down to, is like different cultures being unable to like sort of work with or work around each other.
Well, and it's interesting because like we've seen Test work with goons against PanFam, like all the time. Um, so that's like when they were doing the Imperial Legacy thing, like they were a scary force and they shit stomped PanFam multiple times. Like, it was just bad.
Right, yeah,
And
but but the question is, was Legacy like considered a part of Goon Swarm, and then therefore like they like inherited a lot of the culture from them? Like were they included in like this is an us versus them kind of mentality, or were they like kind of like a side piece to the Imperium? I think that's a real question you have to ask.
so from my perspective, when I was in Test, it was hey, listen, goons or the Imperium and Legacy, like we're banding together to defend our home space from these invaders. It was sort of like a, if goons fall, then PanFam moves in next door and kills Legacy. If Legacy falls, then PanFam moves in and kills goons.
Right.
Like
So
it was,
it wasn't like an embrace of like, oh, we're different, but like let's settle each other's differences and like, actually become a harmonic or like a very well built together coalition, right? It's more of a coalition of circumstance than it is of actual wanting to be together, right? So there was still, it seems like from what you're saying, there was still that mentality of us versus them with the Imperium when they decided to join hands with Test, right? And it seemed like they still saw Test as an outsider in their coalition, right? Because like it's still them. It's still the Imperium that came in with the very closed off kind of culture. So like it's, yeah. I mean it's, what do you expect?
and I think it was pretty interesting because for the longest time there, like when I was part of Test, like I honestly thought like, okay, we're gonna build a relationship with goons and we're gonna Voltron up to go and curb stomp PanFam, which like during that time, like for me, like okay, PanFam was the enemy of the game because I, having played for many years before, like I know what it feels like to be in a small alliance, to be trying to get our feet wet, and then PL just coming in and saying we're bigger than you, we're just going to shit stomp you into the ground. Like I know exactly what that feels like. It's happened multiple times. And so for me, especially when in that situation, when it was feeling like, okay, Legacy and PanFam, or no, Legacy and Imperium are going to Voltron up and go completely wipe PanFam from the game, like to me that felt like, okay, it felt like a more war that made sense in terms of morals because, like, yes, goons, they're big and they shit stomp people, but like from that perspective, they didn't really seem to punch down. Like they weren't the ones punching down on Brave when Brave was just trying to, get started and really starting to build up. Like they weren't the ones punching down on Legacy or on Test when Test was in Tribute and in CO2 days. Like they weren't the one punching down on Hero when Hero was a thing. Like it seemed like, okay, if there's gonna be a righteous war, like based off of my experience of getting my ass handed to me by PanFam merely because they find it fun, like that kind of made more sense to go after them and instead of the goons. But again, there was that whole cultural difference of the goons are very much like it's us versus them, whereas Legacy, it's like we just want to have fun.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's basically the point here. It's just Imperium's like like default like hostile nature can make it difficult for them to not get themselves embroiled in a war, and like here we are.
And plus, like part of me also thinks, and this is me putting on the tinfoil hat, and this is not the whole like, hey, this is an Imperial legacy trap. No, this is more of, so we have this the real world is shit right now, and I guess in some sort of like conspiracy theory way, like I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's the best thing that the EVE community can do as a whole to sort of get people's minds off the shitty state of the world now? How about a hell war? So maybe somewhere out there in some Jabber or some Discord, all the Alliance leaders got together and said, hey guys, our members are going through a pretty tough time right now. The world sucks. Let's start a hell war, to get everyone's minds off of the real world. All right, let's do a hell war. Let's let it last as long as we can. Everyone has fun. Let's have some fun. Is that the truth? I don't know, but it would be a really good story and a really good headline. Just like big or massive alliances start hell war to take people's minds off the current state of the world. But again, that's like conspiracy level theories.
I mean, I don't think you're too far off the track. Like, it's with people having to be stuck inside, it's definitely like a not that bad of an idea to start like something big during that kind of period of time. But like, you're also gonna have people who have to leave at some point to focus on other things other than a game that's gonna like end up consuming a lot of time. Like this game will end up consuming a lot of time for a lot of people, especially during this era where it's like, oh, you can't really go anywhere besides work and school and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean,
well, it's definitely consumed a lot of my time. However, it has been good to keep my mind preoccupied.
yeah, but like, so for like, but on this topic, like at some point you have to ask yourself, like, how much of your life are you relying on this game? Like is this like your only entertainment? Is this your only hobby? And if so, it's probably not the best idea for people to be coming back to the game or to continually invest in the game, because like it's you got to support yourself with other hobbies in this game, quite honestly. And you got to keep asking yourself monthly, like, if I were to be all right, if I were to be like cut off from my Eve account today, like tomorrow, like how much of an impact will that be? And like if you have to answer yourself like, oh, it's gonna be a pretty big impact, then you gotta reevaluate your situation a little bit more.
Because like with me personally, like many players, like I'll go through sort of stages where it's like, okay, I really want to play Eve, but then I don't really want to play Eve, and then I won't play Eve at all. Like before this war, I took like a 7-month break. Like, and I think for a lot of players, like that's kind of the cycle of this game. Like they'll be playing it a lot, then they'll stop, and then they'll go on hiatus, but then they'll come back.
I think that's a good way, like being able to sort of detach yourself for that long period of time. Like I think like it's a question that we're all gonna have to ask ourselves at some point, and like Alphastar had to ask himself that question. So and like I'll also be honest, like I've had to ask myself that question a lot of times, and like it's gone like I've realized at some point like I need to step away from the game a little bit more, which is why I haven't been going on ops that many times. So
Everyone's like too, like one of these days, like Eve is not, and this is something that a while back I had to really look at. Like it doesn't matter, what you've done in Eve. Like at the end of the day, like what's the best way to say it?
it is just a game.
Yeah, Eve doesn't last. And when I was in college, I had to say to myself, like at the end of the day, like one of these days the Eve servers will shut off.
Right.
And I won't have like all my blueprints. I won't have my super. All that stuff will be gone. I'll have the memories and I'll have the friends I've made though. But I mean, that's really it. Like the fact that you accomplished all this stuff, it's like, oh, I was in this super elite group. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, there are like, or excuse me, like what you potentially do in this game could really translate beneficially over to what you do in real life. Like, there's no argument about that. But like, at some point, you gotta weigh the benefits and the setbacks that this game will throw at you. So it's good to be invested, but not invested to the point where it would make a significant impact on your life.
Yeah, and like how I've looked at it is that like this game, it made me want to do what I do. Like it made me want to join the game industry after seeing Guard getting up on stage and starting to rap. Like having sort of like a company culture where that's allowed, like it made me want to join the game industry. And while Eve has helped me to go that direction in my life, it is also, especially during college, very much detracted from that, because instead of like bettering myself and working on stuff, I was playing Eve. And then after I graduated and was like, okay, now I need to start my career, that's really when I was like, okay, I'm quitting Eve cold turkey. And then I subsequently came back because the Rona started happening all over the world. And yeah. And with that, we should probably get on to our next topic of so I don't know if you heard about this, but so there was yesterday on the Meta Show, they were talking about the TTT and people getting value from it.
I've never seen so many people, not from the Brave side, not from the Legacy side, but from the Imperium side, like scream and howl about it. It's like, dude, you just gotta calm down a little bit. Like you, like here's the thing, like I feel like Mittens needs to like sort of maintain some sort of standard level of composure, but this fan like really lost it on this one point, and it's kind of difficult to watch.
It was kind of difficult, but I'm gonna go to a little bit more memey side here. But so I kind of had a bit of him. I played sort of a bit of a role in creating this, but there's now a meta show alignment chart, and
Oh, nice.
and it was basically based off of. It was originally based off of what color shirt Matani was wearing.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I think I've heard something similar.
Basically, it went from the suit Matani to red shirt Matani to black shirt. So the suit Matani, it was like, you're getting the dad talk. The red shirt was, the herfin blurfin mittens. And then the black shirt was, you done fucked up. And of course, being the black shirt, the only place to put it was chaotic evil. Yesterday on the show, he was wearing a black shirt. And at this point, I think he had seen the alignment chart and was actually like planning what he was going to wear around this alignment chart. And he delivered. Like yesterday's episode was very much a chaotic evil episode, because the minute it was announced that when Villy said that legacy alliances get value from the TTT, like you said, you've never heard so much howling and screaming from one particular group in this game before.
Because like it seemed like Brave and Test and whoever else were involved were like pretty calm about it. Like if they have an issue, they're going to resolve it in their channels, and they're gonna be very cordial about it. And here's the Imperium, like some random Imperium line members who are posting on Reddit. It's like, oh no, look at this. Villy's doing the bad thing. He said X, Y, and Z. Oh, they're bad allies, and Brave and Tess are just sitting there like, okay, like there's a lot of it's being triggered over something that really doesn't affect them. Like, you got it down.
Well, and something that's interesting too about the Imperium line members, and especially those people on Reddit, like they want the Imperium to be right. Like that just seems like it's more for them about like, oh, the Imperium was right. You're fighting on the wrong side. Yada yada yada. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. But what was interesting was that when Villy said that yes, alliances receive value from the TTT, like Mittens immediately went to, okay, it's not ISK. Well, here's the thing. Like, why would Villy, like, it goes back to the whole, like, we're doing this on our schedule and on our terms. Like, why would Villy answer the Matani's question honestly? Like, and it's not that he didn't answer it honestly, it's that value can be anything. Like, value can be ISK, value can be ships. Like, it might just be that part of the value that other legacy alliances get from this is they might not have to pay their SRP. Like, and even Dunk Dinkle, like, I think it was Asher who messaged Dunk and said, hey, are you guys getting screwed on the TTT? And Dunk pretty much didn't say anything.
It's like, yeah, why would you need to answer that? It's none of your business. So, like, why would an alliance need to answer something that's really just internal affairs unless it's like super necessary? Like, what do you expect? Like, they're not gonna answer you. They're not gonna get baited into responding like that.
Yeah, because it's like in the whole thing of like them jumping to value, like, okay, well, they're not doing anything. I mean, value can be anything. Value could literally just be ISK, but again, they're not going to answer you because, like you said, they don't need to. And I don't know. I think that whole thing when I first heard it was like, yeah, if they're not getting ISK, like that is kind of shitty. But again, we don't know if they're getting ISK or not. We just know that they're getting something, which, okay, at least they're getting something.
Right.
So I think there was one last thing that I wanted to talk about since the show is actually getting to the hour mark was the Trig invasion.
Just another one?
Oh no, it's still the same one that's going on. But there was a lot of speculation that it was going to end on the 25th of August. That has not happened. And because of that, I have actually decided to start partaking in the Trig invasion, which is kind of good, but also kind of bad because we have two Edencom fortresses right next to Horde staging.
Yeah. Now, what would be pretty funny is if there's a Trig invasion right in Horde staging. That'd be pretty funny. And then it's just a war turns into like a PvE chapter.
All right, I'm not gonna lie, that would kind of fucking suck because so during the fleet, during last night's fleet, when we went to go defend our ITEC C fortizar, there were people in the fleet who participated in the invasion on the side of the Triglavians. So we literally had Edencom ships. Like Edencom was literally defending, was killing our fleet and making it easier for the goons.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
Which I thought was hysterical because I made the comment of, holy crap, Edencom's doing more to win this war than goons are. Like that whole incident was hilarious. But also it made it to where it's like, oh, okay, so if we're going to be constantly running through this Edencom fortress, I need to do it on an alt. But my high sec alt is specifically for running level 5 missions and doing market stuff. So all I've got is my null tune. Well, turns out I don't really have a bunch of alts. So I ended up having my other subcap pilot, or my second main, run through and go into Eden and go into Amara, get a ship, and join some Triglavian fleets. Which, by the way, if you want to join that, go to in-game channel Kybernaut Swarm. Yeah, Kybernaut Swarm. If you want to help out the Trigs, because the Triangle people, I'm simping a little bit for the Triglavians, but they, 10 out of 10, they are the right faction to fight for. Because a lot of people, so I hate to bring up Niarja, even considering it's already been talked about, but something I found interesting was that a lot of people, when they were talking about Niarja getting invaded, their whole thing was, oh, blah, 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 logistics. Well, when I actually talked to a logistical person who ran nullsec logistics and war logistics on this show, he talked about it and pretty much said, yeah, no, Niarja falling, I guess, sucks, but I don't really use it. But the real thing that's been difficult with this invasion are the Edencom Sino-jammers. So he's had to go through and actually kill Edencom so that he could move. So I thought it was kind of interesting. It's like, all right, people are complaining that the Triglavians are ruining logistics, when in actuality, Edencom's the one who's actually fucking with nullsec logistics with their Sino-jammer.
Right, I guess it's just it just sucks for people who have to take normal freighters, and
Oh yeah, no, that's
less for people who have to take jump freighters.
Yeah, if you're in a normal freighter and you have to go to Amara, oh boy, are you in for a treat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that about wraps everything up. There was a goon Aeon that died.
Oh yeah, there were a couple capital kills. Like I didn't know about the Aeon kill, but there is the guy who was quitting Eve and just threw his avatar right into Fountain. I wish he came around to Aquarius instead, but beggars can't be choosers.
Did we kill it?
Oh no. Init killed it, I think. They formed a mutant fleet and then just shot at it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That actually just reminded me. So there was and this will be the last thing before we end the show, because again, we're starting to go over our hour. But they told us, Metashow told a story about how there was a goon guy who was answering the Horn of Goondor. He was like, yeah, I'm in Declan. And so,
yeah.
And so they contacted Asher, and Asher's like, okay, yeah, no, we'll get you moved down here. We'll organize something. Just hold on. And then the response to that was, hey, I'm 6 jumps in. Wait, what? Where are you? Yeah, I'm in Syndicate right now, and I'm kind of just sitting here on a Sino next to a moon.
No.
And just aligned out. And somehow, like, he made it down through Syndicate, past Fountain, and then jumped into Delta. How nobody caught that, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's pretty ballsy, and like hats off to him. Like I would never do something like that.
Well, and it's amazing because like one of the points they brought up, it's just like, yeah, no, he can't land on a bait Asterhus if he doesn't know what a bait Asterhus is. Like that I just thought was hilarious. It's like, oh, what's this Asterhus? Yeah, I'm not gonna trust it because I don't know what it is. Oh, a fortizar? What the hell's that? And so
Right.
it was pretty memey. Yeah, and with that, I guess we'll go to closing thoughts. Persistence, you got any closing thoughts?
I just want to say that just make sure you don't rely on Eve too much. Make sure you have other hobbies that'll keep you supported. But also just enjoy the war. Please, don't be too spurgy. It is just a game after all. No need to, rustle your feathers or like get high blood pressure because of this game.
I guess my final thoughts are fly dangerously and fight for the Triglavians. They've got it going pretty good. It's a pretty good community, and also fuck Edencom. So yeah, and with that, we'll sign off. thank you guys for watching Between Two Keepstars. I'll see you guys next week.